There's no way in that he would have been able to get effective fire on anybody, let alone even shoot a gun. He'd be hanging on for dear life. My name's Patrick McNamara. I did 22 years in the U.S. Army Special Operations. I work for my own company called T-Max Inc., where I train people in tactical marksmanship. Today we're gonna look at gun handling techniques in movies and judge how real they are. What I love about that scene, and I call this eliminating predictability, where he kind of lowered his profile a little bit, he peeked and saw the guy's foot and shot him right in the foot, and then came back up with two hands and then finished the work. I thought that was cool as hell, eliminating predictability. So a press check becomes extremely important because you have to understand the condition of the weapon system. Just because you've loaded a mag in it does not necessarily mean that it is loaded. They'll pull the slide back, let the slide forward, and assume that they are good to go, when in fact they didn't seat the mag all the way. And unless you seat the mag all the way and charge the pistol, it probably didn't load. You'd never fight. So press checks are free. Do a press check if there's a lull in the fight. For me personally, it's not the press check I would use, where he flips like this and pulls the slide back a little bit. It looks really cool. I'm gonna have more positive control. You have to respect Keanu's gun handling ability, not only his gun handling ability, but you understand the work that he put in, especially with the mechanics. Because when it comes to reloading, press checks, everything like that, it's obvious that he has got time behind a gun. I'm gonna go as high as an 8 on this one. For cool points, solid 10. You're not gonna be able to fire that thing from the hip. You could fire a pistol from the hip, whatever it is, where you're just bringing it in tight to your body. You need that bipod down because you have to fire in those 7 to 9 round bursts. He did pretty good at making it look real. You could tell, I mean, those muscles were tense. When it comes to shooting from the hip, me personally, I'm not a big fan of it, but there's a time and place for everything. Immediate lethal threat right there in front of you. So you draw and basically just turn the pistol as soon as it's clear from the holster and start your engaging. Start right there, boom, boom, shooting from the hip. The other thing that you have to suspend reality on is that an M60E3 model can fire that many rounds without malfunctioning. He wraps the belt around his arm. It's to make sure that that thing isn't dangling. You don't want that belt to dangle and to kink because then you're gonna have a failure to feed immediately. If you don't have an AG, assistant gunner, is just use the ammo can itself. And the ammo can on a lot of these will just clip on to the side of the apparatus on the machine gun itself, and that way it's fed properly. It just feeds in nice and straight, and that belt won't twist, bind, kink up. I would give it a 4 because you can't fire effectively from the... Very, very tough to operate a submachine gun with one hand. There's not a lot of muzzle whip on there, but there's a lot of climb. When this slide comes back, the momentum of the pistol climbs like this. The muzzle whip increases based on how limp your wrist or grip is. That thing is gonna climb on fully automatic, and you're just gonna start ripping rounds into the roof, and indiscriminate fire is everywhere. Stronger the grip, you're gonna get very little. It's going to operate on a flat of a line as possible. His gun handling is overall pretty good. In this scene, not the best because there's so much strong hand only shooting being done. Strong hand only is very, very difficult. And it's very unrealistic how fast he was shooting people strong hand only. There's no way I could replicate something like that real world just because the amount of work it takes, especially with that small frame pistol that he's got. It's probably got a horrible trigger, and he was hitting people at 15 and 20 yards strong hand only. Not going to happen. With limited visibility, mind you. It's probably the best shooting form I saw in that entire clip. She's got two hands on the pistol. She's braced with her strong side leg, right? So her right leg, her shooting side, and her other leg is cocked up just a little bit. It was a really solid firing from the back position. I would rate this clip a 4. The only reason I would rate it a 4 is because low visibility, you're not going to be hitting those targets the way they were hitting them.
10, 9, 8.
He misses the guy on a motorcycle, but he's close. It's only, what, 10 yards maybe? I definitely would have used 2 hands instead of just 1 because you're way more effective to control the recoil, to get a better follow through, to get a better sight alignment. It's going to increase accuracy overall.
Someone's not counting. 6.
The counting, there is some validity there in knowing how much ammo you have, right? But to count them down like that in a stress inoculation scenario like that, probably not doable. He uses a side grip, right? Something like that. So some people would call it the gangster grip, that kind of thing. You are maybe moving laterally, right-handed shooter, moving from right to left. So like this right here, but you're still looking down at the sights. Now, something that this provides is really good anatomical stability because you're very strong here anatomically. There's a time and a place for it. He wasn't using it correctly, but in order for him to use it more effectively, he should have extended fully and looked straight down rear sight, front sight. I would rate this clip a solid 2. It's not realistic, but it's a lot of fun. One of the SWAT cops, during his movement from point A to point B, does a little roll. Nonsense. The objective when moving from one point to the other is to get there. It's hard to shoot a moving target. You have to eliminate predictability, and mobility equals survivability. Don't do a roll. You can see that it's what's called a failure to eject. So the round extracts, right? The brass extracts, but it didn't eject. He keeps squeezing the trigger. Trained gun hunters are not going to do that. The sound and feel of that malfunction is very, very unique. So if you continue to try to fire a gun with a failure to eject, you're going to squeeze forever. Nothing's going to happen, ever. It's not a catastrophic malfunction, but it's a very, very easy one to clear.
Here's your winner.
So there was another thing that really drove me crazy with the scene. First off, the bullet holes looked ridiculous. Big rips in the paper and everything. They looked nothing like bullet holes in paper. And then you wouldn't have an RO, put his finger in the hole and announce, this guy's the winner, this guy didn't meet up to the standard or whatever like that. It's just very unrealistic. They would have been right there checking the targets themselves. I would rate this clip a 1. Action movies, you have to suspend reality. When an action movie is, let's say, highlighting police or military, I think you have to be more careful with realism. This one here was riddled with buffoonery. He looks around the corner. You never clear a corner with your face. Your face can't shoot back. It would have been better in this particular scene if he were maybe using that room as cover. He could have been full extension and kind of pied off that corner a little bit, walked laterally in a fashion, and then now he owns that real estate with the gun instead of with his face. James Bond doing what's referred to as a cup and saucer grip. So instead of a good solid grip where you're consuming, right, the lower portion of the pistol to reduce muzzle whip like we talked about before, his support hand grip is almost underneath of the pistol. So cup, saucer. So there's very, very little control when it comes to controlling the recoil. There is absolutely no scenario, zero, where cup and saucer would be good to use. He's right in the middle of the hallway. It's like he's in a competition shooting match, and he's firing multiple targets. You don't clear a hallway from the center of the hallway. You want to use cover. His transition between target and target was not bad, but tactically speaking, it was very poor. That was a very easy shot at the assailant, the guy who was holding the gun. His entire pie was visible. Instead, he opted to shoot him, I think, in the hand and her in the arm, which, screw that. I would have taken that shot. He should have that level of training that he could take that shot easily. So overall, Pierce Brosnan's gun form is very, very subpar. I would rate this clip a 3.
That my briefcase?
Is your briefcase? Yeah, it is. Why, you want it back?
He confronts him and allows him to close the gap with pistols out. Game over.
Huh?
Very cool scene. So the way he drew in this particular scene was not only good as far as effectiveness went, but as far as safety went as well. He did such a good job in clearing that blazer, and there was a really good positive grip on that pistol as he drew, and it was just spectacular as far as gun handling went. So hands up, which means non-aggressive posture. Came over the top left hook, down, drew, shot from the hip, boom, boom, and then two hands, boom, boom. So you could tell, not only in this scene, but other scenes in this movie, that Tom Cruise spent many, many, many hours drawing and firing, drawing and firing. So he's built in what people refer to as muscle memory, right? But he's performed the appropriate amount of meaningful repetitions until that draw stroke is seamless. Because that right there was easily a 1.5 or maybe even a sub 1.5 second draw stroke, which was really nice. It looked textbook to me. There's a lot going on in here as far as body position too. So tactically, he eliminates predictability. He makes sure he gets off the X. So his head, his whole body motion is ensuring that nothing is predictable, right? So predictability leads to freaking chaos, and you're an easy target if you are predictable in your body movements. So he went off the charts with unpredictability, like a boxer would do. You know, make him miss, make him pay. I'm not a fan of lazy gun handling, but he just kind of lets it dangle before he puts it away. Me personally, I mean, I would have probably backed up and made sure that I was covering them before I put the pistol away. Overall, in this scene, Tom Cruise's form was really, really good. Time invested, sweat equity. That dude put in work. He put in hours. I would rate this clip a 9. The gun handling, the body motion, the over-the-top left hook, perfect. He grabbed the guy's pistol, immediate like this. No time to think about it. So, I mean, if it were me and I grabbed the pistol like that and I understand its handling characteristics, I might, but then he had plenty of time just to flip it around and get a good grip on it. So what he's doing is he's gripping it this way and firing it with his pinky finger. Now, to be honest, I have done this before for demonstration purposes, telling people when it comes to firing, the most important thing is sight alignment and trigger control. It doesn't matter what your grip is, your stance, any of that stuff. But as far as firing effectively, absolutely not. You have zero anatomical stability like this. I thought the scene was very, very cool, but two heavy portions facing the same way, you're going to nosedive almost immediately. You're not going to free fall like you're on a magic carpet. There's no way in hell that he would have been able to get effective fire on anybody, let alone even shoot a gun, he'd be hanging on for dear life. When you're shooting in a field like this with tall grass, let's say knee high, there's a couple of things that can increase accuracy. One is the lower the better, and the wider the better. The lower, the more stability, the wider, the more mobility. As far as accuracy goes, it's a shotgun, so you really don't need to be that stable, right? So it really doesn't matter whether he was standing in the prone, in a rice paddy prone, or anything of that fashion. I would do the same thing he did in this one. I would imagine that is a preferred technique where you're cupping the butt under your arm and you're shotgunning, right? So you're breaking that rifle in half, extracting those empties and putting in the new cartridges, the new rounds, flipping it up to lock it into battery. You know, I'd probably just assist it with my hand instead of flipping it up like that. I would rate both of these clips for realism about a 6. The way he moves with either a rifle or a pistol, he looks very comfortable. He looks at ease with that stuff. You know, it's like it's an extension of his person.
Downrange target. Hey, look at that, will you? Not bad for an old man.
So the sights on the revolver are pretty minuscule. They're not very defined. He takes very, very little time to aim after he draws, and he hits this target directly between the running lights, which probably is not going to happen because the accuracy is really not that good. A cross draw would be actually crossing your body to draw the pistol, and then you have to come to extension before you could put two hands on the grip itself and get a good sight picture. Also, you'll notice that Murtaugh takes his finger off the trigger before he reholsters it. That finger has to come off before you reholster it. Riggs' form is very, very cringeworthy. He's slapping the heck out of the trigger, right? So he's going a million miles on that trigger, and he's shutting his eyes at every shot. And his whole body is flinching with every single shot. It's not rhythmic. There's no metronome rhythm there. It's just ripping rounds into the target. It's a horrible pistol marksmanship scene.
Have a nice day.
There's no way he'd be able to print a smiley face on that target. They back that target way up. I could shoot a smiley face at a target like that at 20 yards. It's going to take me about 30 seconds or so. It's going to be well-aimed shots, not just ripping rounds into the target. That's not going to happen. I would rate this clip a 1. I think every gun handler in the world goes back to this movie and talks about this scene right here, because it's horrible as far as gun handling and marksmanship goes. One of the things that bothered me about this clip is use of firearms in the dark. They all have nods on, right? Night observation devices. None of these folks, none of them, from what I saw, had any kind of illuminator, you know, on their rifle itself. So you're basically firing indiscriminately. It's a huge battlefield multiplier, and I'm surprised they didn't put any in here. I think they're supposed to be special ops troops. They're not in the business of indiscriminate fire. They have to be able to shoot with impunity. It's their job. That's what they get paid the big bucks for.
Gun.
Leave it. Stay with 6.
You know, she's in the line of fire, her rifle gets shot, now she has to transition to her pistol. It never happened to me, ever, but I do know 2 guys that that's happened to, getting shot right in the rifle, and it rendered that rifle inoperable. When she transitioned from rifle to pistol, I thought the grip was pretty good. It was a good solid grip. It was full extension, which when you're moving forward, probably not full extension like this. You want to bring it in a little bit to create a shock absorber of sorts, because if it's at full extension, when you're moving, you're going to create a pendulum of sorts, and it's going to bounce up and down. So if I'm moving forward with a pistol, I'm going to bring it in a little bit just to create that shock absorber. And then if there's a target there, bring it out and get to work. I would rate this clip for realism a 6. I thought the gun techniques were not great, not good, right above average.
You want to play rock? Say hello to my little friend.
That wasn't real, but I liked it nonetheless. He launches around into the door, and he's only about 7 meters away. The arming distance, I believe, for M203 is like 20 meters. So it wouldn't have detonated when it hit the door. It just would have sheared right through that door. The rate of fire at which Tony Montana's rifle was firing was pretty accurate. I mean, the muzzle flash, though, that was extreme. So what muzzle flash refers to is the amount of light that is coming off that muzzle when the round leaves the muzzle of the weapon itself. You don't want muzzle flash because it could give away your position. Appreciate that he's not a commando in this. He looks like he's a drug dealer shooting a gun, firing it from the hips, spraying and praying. You know, when I talk about spraying and praying, all I'm saying is you're just squeezing the trigger, you're oriented at the target somewhere, but you're not aiming. It's indiscriminate fire. You're praying that those rounds hit, that all this indiscriminate fire hits what you're potentially aiming at. There's no way that I would teach people to spray and pray, ever. He's got his mags duct taped together, jungle style. Some guys will have 2 magazines and they'll put something to create a gap in between them so they could drop one when it's empty and switch it, and the full one goes into the mag well. Something else that they might do is place them like this, rounds here, tape them together this way. So empty one comes out, switch it around, full one goes into the mag well. I would rate this clip a 1. Not necessarily based on the gun handling, the volume of rounds from a particular weapon system, the inability to understand what the arming distance is on the M203. So for mechanics' sake, I just thought it was not good. Want to go kneeling unsupported like he was shooting, that's not recommended. I think one of the things that I appreciated about this scene is that Max conceded, right? Handed the rifle over to her, and it is not unheard of to use somebody else as support like they were doing. A couple issues though. One is, man, that muzzle right next to your head, that's going to be damaging. It's a micro concussion. As soon as she squeezes, she shoulders the buttstock, and that is an absolute miss on target. So as far as like stabilizing your shooting platform for long distance shots, there are several different types of prone positions. There are several different types of sitting positions, several different types of kneeling positions, squatting positions. I mean, you could use a monopod, a bipod. Now, as far as proper use of that particular scope, I don't think she would have had the dexterity to adjust on that optic. It really matters for the shooter to understand at what distance that rifle is zeroed. Now that target is rapidly approaching, which means the zero distance is changing rapidly as well, which means you probably have to do adjustment on that, and that would be an elevation one versus a windage one. I would rate this clip a 5.
Nah, you mother.
It probably wasn't divine intervention that saved Sam Jackson and John Travolta's life. It was probably just really poor marksmanship. What people might think is, well, why did he miss? That close. Not uncommon. It's not an easy thing hitting somebody with a pistol, even at close distance. If you're not trained and you're just mushing and going 1,000,000 miles an hour in that trigger, you're not hitting deadly squat. It's a movie where you have to suspend reality. These are gangsters. They're not gun guys. They're gangsters. So let them shoot strong hand and just blaze away. Bruce Willis's character is shooting a MAC-10 with a silencer from the hip. The unrealistic part of this is that the MAC-10 actually functioned with the whole magazine because it's not going to. And the other thing I noticed is that he's got it tucked in real tight, right? Real tight. And I think he's covering, or has the potential of covering, the ejection port, which means that thing is going to, even if it did function through the entire magazine, it's going to cease to cycle because there's going to be a failure to extract and eject that empty casing. You can see that his hand is actually touching the silencer. He should have brought it in back of that silencer, because there's no way that he is going to go unscathed without, with his hand on the actual silencer itself. I would rate this a 3 only because there's no effective gun handling at all, but you have to consider the source. Who are these people? So I got to give them a little bit there, because these people are not gun handlers, they're thugs. My favorite gunfight scenes in movies are from Heat and Black Hawk Down. A couple things that struck me about the gunfight in Heat were mechanics, magazine changes, how they were carrying the gear, how they used vehicles for cover. So they went the extra mile. And as far as Black Hawk Down goes, they made them look like very, very authentic in their movements, the way they even just walked with a rifle, those kind of things. Because that takes work to look natural with a rifle when it's not your natural job. If you like this video, why not click on the next one?